Hello, everybody. This is Stuart Wilde of stuartwilde.com. I'm talking today with Mike Adams. He's known as the Health Ranger, and he has a wonderful site called naturalnews.com. And I go to it most days. It has wonderful stories about natural remedies and things that you can do to heal yourself physically and emotionally and so forth. And he's come on today to talk about DMT. And that's one of my favorite subjects because, as you all know, I've been a great promoter of ayahuasca, and that is one of the main components of the ayahuasca brew. Anyway, welcome, Mike, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Stuart. It's great to be with you today, and I'm really interested to talk with you about this subject and consciousness and all that. So wherever you want to start is okay with me.
Well, why don't you start by describing to the listeners what is DMT, because I don't know if necessarily many people have really heard of it and so forth.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, first of all, I don't claim to be an expert on DMT. I've never used it, never even tried it, but I've written about it, and I believe there's a conspiracy.
You need to come over to Europe and hang out with us. You need to come and hang out with us. In Holland,
That's what I hear.
Yeah, you've got to come because it really is the doorway to another evolution, in my view. It's the active compound in ayahuasca, and of course it's dimethyltryptamine. So it is sort of showing the way to humanity now for like an evolution beyond the insanity that surrounds us.
Yes. Well, let me just jump right into it and say that even though I haven't experienced it, but maybe I will in the future, who knows? But I do believe that, we are free will, conscious spirits living in a human body, in a human experience, and that there are gateways between our physical existence and our spiritual wisdom or knowledge, which is much, much greater. And that it appears to be that a lot of those gateways are controlled or governed through the pituitary system, or in the energetic world, you might call it the chakras of the energetic body, the bioenergy body. And DMT seems to be a key that unlocks some of those doorways and allows us, our souls, to experience a much more grand reality. Now, you're more of an expert on that than I am, but that's at least my understanding of it as a nutritionist and an investigative journalist.
Well, I couldn't have put it better myself, to tell you the truth. It definitely opens a doorway. The human body has DMT in it naturally. So some people like to pretend it's a drug, but it's not. It's a natural substance inside the physical body. Now, the body fires DMT at birth, and I believe that's so because it's very stressful for that small child to come down the birth canal, and the DMT keeps it calm and aware of what's going on. And then they say that the body fires DMT at death, and that's the near-death tube and the visions of celestial beings, whatever that people see when they're approaching death. And then in between, there isn't much happening for most people because they're very DMT depleted. And you would know more about the nutrition of DMT than I do, but a lot of it's to do with junk food and stress and alcohol and so forth.
Yes.
We use DMT in the ayahuasca ceremonies as a way of sort of filling people's supply back up. And it also explains why sometimes when a person has an ayahuasca journey, the first journey they have, they just go into a bliss state and they can feel what is known in South America as the medicine, la medicina, which is going around their body, but they don't see visions. And then on the second journey, they see visions. So it's almost like the glass has to be filled up first before they can see. But I mean, it's known as the spirit molecule because of its visionary gift to humanity.
And I think the bigger, I agree with everything you just said, by the way, but I think the real story here is that globally, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I believe there is a global effort to suppress consciousness And that effort takes many forms. Some of it is chemical, such as in the fluoride that's put into the water supply. Some of it is energetic or informational, such as the suppression of knowledge that's done by government regulators to try to make entire civilizations forget about their ethnobotanical history, the wisdom of the plants. You know, the FDA's role in the United States is to obliterate all indigenous knowledge of plant medicine. There are many other examples of this, but governments do not want people to attain consciousness. And this is the main reason behind the war on drugs. The war on drugs doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make sense from a justice point of view or a judicial point of view. It only makes sense if you realize the government wants to keep people suppressed and unaware and spiritually devolved, or even thinking that they don't have a spirit. So that's why DMT might be the key to unlocking a revolution of spiritual freedom for the future of humanity. That's the big story.
Well, I think that's right. And I think that there has been this suppression because obviously the more people that take, let's say, DMT or mushrooms or that smoke pot, the more they get out of the matrix, they get out of TikTok. Now, mushrooms were legal in Britain just up until 3 years ago. And I mean, you could just walk into any shop and buy them, but they banned them. And then they banned them in Holland. And there were a few horror stories of teenagers getting stoned and jumping off bridges into the canal and that sort of stuff. But there wasn't really any reason to ban them. But yeah, there is this global dumbing down of society. And then I've noticed also the censorship that goes on. I mean, you're not really free to write what you want to write anymore on the internet.
No.
Without being sort of stomped upon. And certainly all the big sites, you know, YouTube, Google, Facebook, they all exercise a policy of censorship. And a lot of it's political, like Facebook censor anybody that is pro the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. And, you know, that's a political stance of Facebook's, I suppose. But I mean, like, surely people should be able to discuss things, but that's not so anymore.
Well, it's just like what we talked about, where it said the FDA wants to suppress and eliminate knowledge of ethnobotanical history. Facebook wants to destroy and eliminate discussion of ideas of liberty, things that it does not want you to talk about. Our account got banned for posting a photo of Gandhi and a quote from Gandhi.
I remember reading the quote. It was something about the British taking away the guns from the Indian people, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, that's an innocuous quote, isn't it?
Well, and it was just a piece of history. And so, you know, history, I mean, this is classic, you know, Orwellian 1984 stuff where Winston has to rewrite the history books to conform to the current desires of the government.
Yeah.
So on Facebook, you're not allowed to discuss the history that is true. You have to selectively post only the history that is congruent with Facebook's current political agenda.
Yes.
And that's not freedom, man.
No, and did you get your site reinstated at Facebook, or was it banned forever?
We got it reinstated with a warning that if we ever posted anything that they didn't like, and they didn't give us any guidelines on that we would be permanently banned.
So how...
You're viewing 4 kids being mentally abused by their parents.
What's
They've been
that?
forced to continuously eat a new product.
That's on your side.
Provel bites, developed by their grandparents. Marginette emo.
Right.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's just rerun it and I'll edit the tape. So I'll ask you again, was your site reinstated by Facebook?
Yes, it was. But only after we were warned that if we posted anything that Facebook didn't like in the future, we would be permanently banned and just shut down. So, and Facebook didn't tell us what guidelines would qualify for that. So it's like being in an informational minefield. How am I supposed to know? Maybe if I post something about DMT on Facebook, they will say, "Oh, that's an illegal criminal drug, and now you're banned." You know, it's like if you post a mathematical equation, E equals MC squared. Oh no, that's not accepted anymore. You're banned. You know.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
It is very sort of scary because there must be a lot of journalists that are inhibited. I noticed the other day an article that the journalist John Rappaport, who's been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, so he's an eminent writer, was banned from Facebook for writing an article that was critical of Obama. Well,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of Americans voted for Obama and most didn't, you know. I don't know. I
Right.
mean, the fact that somebody doesn't agree with Obama's executive orders and the police state and all these sort of various sort of fascist things that he's instigated, I mean, it's fair political comment, but this poor bloke's been banned. And how would he know that would offend Facebook? I mean, how would he know that?
Well, right. And John Rappaport, you know, I consider him a colleague. He and I talk frequently. He is a brilliant researcher and writer. He is really what I would call an old school journalist, the way journalism used to actually investigate reality and report on scandals and blow the whistle. That's what journalism is supposed to be, but that's not tolerated in America anymore.
Yeah.
You have to simply conform. So we've become a culture, and I think this is happening globally as well, where conformity is what gets you a voice now, but if you don't conform to the status quo, you are censored, you are marginalized, you are demonized, and you're even labeled in America, you could be labeled a terrorist for supporting the Constitution upon which the nation was founded.
Yes, it's very strange and it's very frightening for people, I think. I mean, I hope that some force comes along and sort of washes all this ugliness away. But I used to know of people that did ayahuasca journeys in America, sort of obviously on the quiet, but I know that they've stopped now and some of them have moved to other places. We do ayahuasca ceremonies in Holland, where it's legal, and in Ecuador. And our site is thehiddendoorway.com. And they're very safe because they're sort of not run by like shonky shamans, you know. These are sort of very upstanding. Well, some of the shamans are very dodgy. And then there are other shamans that are absolutely wise old men. They're beautiful and they bring a great thing to ayahuasca. But then there's the ones that sort of want to rip off the gringos that are out there as well. But our people are British and, you know, they're sort of terribly upstanding. So that's how we offer the ayahuasca ceremonies in safe environments where it is legal. And I think it's semi-legal in Portugal because Portugal got rid of almost all of their drug laws. It's quite an extraordinary piece of legislation. But, and of course, drug crime in Portugal has completely collapsed. There is no drug crime there anymore because everything there is legal. And so, it's made a huge difference.
No,
I think
it's a brilliant solution.
Well, it is a solution because, you know, if they sort of if there were sort of hash shops, pot shops that you could go to and maybe even pay a government tax to get an ounce or whatever and other, you know, fairly benign drugs, then you wouldn't need all the violence and the guns and all that stuff, would you, you know?
Well, that's it. Once prohibition doesn't work socially, economically, just in terms of laws. It doesn't work. No matter what you're trying to prohibit. You know, we had that terrible experiment in America in the 1920s with alcohol prohibition. It didn't work. It failed. But what it did do was it funneled millions of dollars, which at that time was like billions, into the underground criminal economy. It created a criminal economy, and it created a brutal police state government whose job was to run around throwing people in prison who were just trying to have a beer, you know. So whether you prohibit DMT or marijuana or alcohol, it always has the same economic effect, which is this huge underground economy, massive criminality, violence, you name it, is what is spawned from that policy. So prohibition doesn't work ever throughout world history.
It hasn't worked.
It doesn't work.
No. I noticed reading on your site, naturalnews.com, there's lots and lots of stories of alternative remedies for cancer and stories about pesticides and Parkinson's disease, I think I read this morning. And there's a sort of movement now to sort of get rid of vitamins, to get rid of alternative therapies, to sort of make all those people seem like they're sort of witch doctors and defrauding people. But of course, we all know, say, for example, that chemotherapy makes people really sick and actually makes their cancer worse. So if you have got cancer, chemotherapy may not be the way to go. There might be other ways,
Sure, yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's been about a 100-year medical monopoly in the Western world. And look, all industries in the world throughout human history want to become monopolies. The petroleum industry wants to dominate energy.
Yeah.
The software industry wants to dominate your software. Medical industry wants to dominate medicine and push out all competing alternatives. They don't want a free market. They don't want competition. And the purpose of government regulators is to enforce the monopolies. So the FDA enforces a monopoly. The Patent Office enforces intellectual property monopolies over molecules. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because molecules like DMT, for example, are generated, in nature, in your own body.
Yeah, of course.
But and the genetic code of the human body, you would think, is your property, right? But according to the U.S. Patent Office, about 20% of the genes in the human genome are owned by patent holders, which are mostly corporations and universities.
Right.
So technically, when you reproduce and have children, you stand in violation of thousands of different patents, and you owe royalties to those patent owners because you have replicated their intellectual property according to the U.S. Patent Office.
Wow.
And drug companies, of course, commit mass biopiracy. They go out into nature. In fact, they've done this in Ecuador. They've sent teams to go out there with the Shuar shamans in Ecuador to find all their best medicine, come back and replicate those molecules, slightly alter them, patent them, get a drug approved based on it, and then eliminate all the plants that have that similar molecule by claiming those plants have been contaminated with a drug.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? But then again, this goes back to what you said at the very beginning of this interview, when you said that, like, they want to dominate knowledge. They don't want people to be free, and they don't want people to see the reality. I mean, there's that wonderful line at the end of The Matrix when Neo flies up out of the telephone box and he says, "I don't know how this ends, but I'm going to show you a world without them," And I think that's the sort of brave new world that I write about on my site, about the dawn of the celestial light, which is going to show us a world without these predators, without these people, without these insidious controllers that are sort of crippling people because we're not allowed to breathe.
Well, you got to realize that humanity is being kept down. It's being suppressed spiritually, physically, economically, at every level by the very small number of global controllers.
Yeah.
And they use suppression as a way to funnel power and money into their own hands. So they are actually compromising the entire evolution of humanity in order to have their own profit. And this is, again, comes back to the war on drugs and DMT, where, DMT should be researched even more as that key that unlocks awareness, that allows people to realize there is a connection between all living things, for example.
Yes, it does that. It does that, definitely.
Yeah.
And one other thing that it does...
we would have if people felt like they were connected to others instead of isolated.
Yeah, that's definitely, because once you take DMT, you can see a connection. The plants, the animals, the moon, the sun, the dawn, the people, they're all one. We're not separated as different nations or different ethnic origins or whatever. But one of the things about DMT, which I found extraordinary, is that it cures depression more or less instantly. And I've had people come to the ayahuasca that have been, let's say, with their therapist and on various Prozacs and stuff like that, and they're cured in one drink because it changes the serotonin levels in the brain and it changes the way the brain uptakes and so forth. And we've had instant cures, and it's not one or two, it's like, I don't know, hundreds. I don't know. I've been to the ayahuasca with about 5,000 people, and generally speaking, a group, might be 60 people, 40 people. And then sometimes people came to the ayahuasca and I didn't attend, but I was like the force behind organizing it. And I mean, there's hundreds. I don't even know. There might even be 1,000 people that have drunk one glass of ayahuasca, having been depressed for 10 years, and they're cured. So,
Yes.
you know, I mean, ayahuasca should be something that you'll be able to go down. I mean, the DMT, you ought to be able to be something you could get in the health food shop when you're feeling a bit
Right.
low, you know, like 5-HTP, let's say. You can still buy that in Europe. But,
Well, and the government regulators, their angle on this is, well, one person might be harmed. You know, one person might overdo it. And therefore, we have to be your daddy and your mommy and tell you what you can buy and what you can't buy and what you can drink. Well, but they conveniently ignore that every year, just in America alone, 783,000 people are killed by medicine, killed by pharmaceuticals, killed by surgeries, killed by superbug infections in the hospitals. That number alone is 48,000 annually.
this is annually.
So,
You're looking at 700 and something thousand annually, are you, Mike? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
783,000 per
Wow.
year
Yeah.
killed by conventional medicine. Not on purpose, obviously. They're not being murdered, but they're being killed by conventional medicine. So this idea that, oh, we got to ban DMT because, you know, 5 people might overdose on it. Meanwhile, you're 1,000 times more likely to get killed by a superbug infection down at the local clinic. You know, it just doesn't make sense. It's hypocrisy.
Well, the fact is that, like, you know, ayahuasca's been going for 100,000 years, and there aren't really any reports of anybody dying from taking ayahuasca.
Right.
And then there was a story that I read some months ago about a kid. He was a teenager, and the shaman gave him a bottle of ayahuasca to look after, and the kid decided to drink the whole bottle. And yeah, but that was like, you know, taking, I don't know, it'd be like, let's say, drinking 25 bottles of whiskey or something, you know? And he
Right.
did meet a sorry end, but I don't think anybody within a controlled ceremony with a proper shaman has ever died on ayahuasca because DMT is natural. It's not like on mushrooms, people can space out and drop off a bridge, you know, or jump over.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, right. But they don't
so,
want people experimenting. That's the thing. You see, in society today, it's all about conformity. Look at public schools. When you're a child, at least in America, this is the way it works. You go to public school, they don't tell you, oh, be creative, be innovative, be independent,
no.
explore on your own, discover the world, express your greatest self. No, the message is stand in line, don't talk, raise your hand, obey, 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 conform, obedience, obedience. You're not allowed to have thoughts outside the box.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to explore outside the box. Here's your history. Here's the
Yeah.
allowable science that you're supposed to learn and repeat. Here's the allowable words and phrases that you can use in English class. I mean, George Carlin, who was a brilliant comedian,
Yes.
was very right about this when he said, all they want to do is create obedient workers. That's the goal. And DMT wakes people up, at least this is my understanding, it wakes people up and it causes them to challenge the obedience grid and look outside the matrix.
Well, I mean, you're 100% right because, I mean, normally people can't see visions, but once you take DMT and once the pineal is sort of stocked up on it again, so to speak, you start to see visions, and those visions are visions of the inner worlds, dimensions. It could be family relationships, money, abundance. It's many different things, but you can begin to see, and the difference between a person that can see and the ones that can't see is chalk and cheese. I mean, a lot of people see through their dreams and through their intuition, and that's good enough, but the DMT molecule definitely takes you up to the next level. And of course, what I suppose the governments and so forth don't want is people to see what a ugly sham they are.
I think that's very true. And I also think it's a real danger to the systems of power on our world if people realize that they are more than their physical bodies. If people
Yeah.
realize there's a spiritual being that does not die at physical death,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden that changes the equation. It's like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't just be a CEO that screws everybody to collect the most money. Maybe I shouldn't, be a bad person that just exercises dictatorial power over everyone else. If you believe that there is something after life, then you must eventually believe that you are held accountable for your actions in some way, whether you believe in the biblical gates of heaven thing or you believe in a spiritual karma. There is judgment, there is karma in effect for your actions here. It's an inescapable conclusion once you realize that you live beyond this life.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, in the higher worlds and even outside the higher worlds, I was able to see the hell worlds and even fight in there by firing a purple dot from my fingers. And I know that sounds, I know that sounds really extreme, but it lasted for about 1,000 days, the purple dot. And I've spent about 4,500 hours in total watching hell. I consider myself like a bit of a world expert. If you want to know about hell, just ask me a question. And
well, I'm very curious to ask you about this, actually.
Well, those dimensions are very, very real, and they're very tormenting, and there's sort of winged entities with claws, and there's imps, and there's little black beings that run around, and there's a lot of different beings in the hell worlds. Many. I don't know if there's trillions of different species, but certainly there's several hundred that I've seen. And those worlds are very real. Yes, so are the heavens, of course. Well, the hells are real, and so are the heavens. The celestial heavens are also very real as well. They're both real.
Well, I'm really wanting to ask you, to what extent is this dimension of hell able to reach into our three-dimensional Earth dimension and influence people or even take over people? Because it seems like that is the only explanation for what is happening behind certain people. Is that true in your experience, or what do you know about that?
No, you're 100% right. The hell worlds aren't very far away. They exist in a mirror world, and if you outstretch your arm in front of you, the dimension of heavens and hell starts halfway between your elbow and your wrist. So then if you bring your hand in front of you and sort of guess the distance, it's about 18 inches from your nose. And those beings can definitely talk to humans, they can influence them, they can demonically possess them. And I do a certain amount of hands-on healing and stuff like that. I usually do it out in the street, or sometimes it's at a health food shop or something like that. And I've worked on 92 demonic possession cases this year alone, you know. So it's where people have become so infiltrated by these demonic beings that they sort of lose control.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. There's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, no, carry on, Mike. Please carry on talking.
Do those people, how do they get possessed? Do they invite the evil in, or do they allow it without intention, or how do they get possessed?
Sometimes they call it in because they want to bring those beings in for power and spells and, you know, sexual tricks or whatever, you know. Sometimes it comes from extremes of like an internal spiritual fascism, you know, where they're very controlling and very nasty and very sort of oppressive towards other humans. So it's not just normal antagonism. Let's say, hey, you don't like these people or you don't like those people. This is sort of serious forms of hatred. And then a lot of times it comes from sexual practices, but not normal sexual healthy practices, but obscure or obtuse or degraded sexual,
like pedophilia or things like that.
Yeah, pedophilia or extremes of porno where they start to go mentally imbalanced, you know, where they start to go nutty. So it's a number of different things. It's a number of different tricks. The inner world beings play on people's specialness. So they start to communicate to a person and they start telling them how special they are and how they've been chosen to bring a message to humanity, or they've been chosen for some special role or whatever. And so that's how they usually trick them into it. And then sometimes people just walk into like a portal. And there are like demonic portals on Earth. They're like vortexes of, you know, which are gateways to the devil worlds. And the person walks in there. I mean, they can't, obviously, if they're completely spiritual and sweet and kind, it isn't going to affect them. But it comes in off people's darkness. And then when these beings start to accumulate in a person's mind or in their body, then they can start to lead them towards hellish ideas, suicide, say, for example, or depravity of one kind or another. So it's very common. Demonic possession is going to become a global disease because
well, that's what I'm wondering. Are we living in a massive global spiritual warfare right now where forces of evil are literally trying to destroy humanity?
That is a very good way of describing it. Yes, it's a spiritual warfare, and the forces of evil are trying to control people's souls, and the forces of good are shining this golden light at people and hoping that they come towards that, and sometimes people get fed up of evil and they go to the light. Often, in fact,
Yeah. Well, what about after this life? Is there, for those who have really engaged in a lot of destruction and evil and deception, do they literally experience a timeless purgatory hell type of existence then?
I don't know if it's timeless, but they definitely experience, yes, a purgatory hell. But then their higher self can incarnate back on this earth plane, even though they may still be in hell. So the higher self has various incarnations in it. So there are people on earth that have like a higher self that last time they were on earth was a mass murderer, So that's how evil is propagated, because there's nothing stopping the higher self reincarnating again into the earth plane, even though that individual person may be stuck. Because the times are so vast, it's impossible to say that they're there forever or not. We're not old enough, and we never will be, to figure it out ourselves. Do you follow me?
Yeah, but from what I've read in near-death experiences, that the dimension of time is gone in hell. So it's like they've been there an instant, but also an eternity.
Well, it's a perpetual now. Yeah, you get that feeling of it being a perpetual now. But how long it is in relation to, let's say, Earth years, we can't tell.
That's interesting. A perpetual now, right?
Yeah.
That's consistent with what I've read.
Yeah, that's what it is in there. It's a perpetual now. There's no sense of time. But then a lot of those dimensions don't have horizons either. So they're very confusing because you don't know if you're upside down or inside out or left or right. You can't discriminate because there's no flat line to look at. And even if you're sitting in a room, there's a flat line on the other wall that shows you that you're up straight. But some of those dimensions, there's no up straight. You cannot tell if you're upside down or straight or left or right or upside down or inside out. You can't tell. It's very confusing.
So how is it that you were able to witness this hell? I mean, what was that? Were you an observer flying through, or experiencing it yourself momentarily, or what? How did that work?
I saw it first on ayahuasca. And I saw these cactus thorns on my hands. I held my hands up and I saw the cactus thorns. And I asked, what are they for? And I heard point and shoot. And so I'd see a ghoul in the distance and I would just breathe like a short, sharp breath at it. I would expel a breath and I would see this yellow dot go out and hit it. And then after that, I found that I could just see it in trance because by then I was used to it. So I'd sit on my bed and I'd fight. 4 to 6, sometimes 8 hours a day, just down there watching them. And when I saw them, I'd fire at them. But they were attractive.
What were you seeing? What?
Well, you see these demonic beings in there. They're digital fractal beings. When the humans get inside the hell world, the first thing that they do is they lose their arms and legs. And so they lose mobility. And so a lot of the beings in the hell worlds are just an upper body with a head. And they move, but they move very slowly, very, very slowly. And so you'd see them coming, and they come in on curved trajectories. And I've got a feeling that's something to do with gravity and the curvature of the earth, but I'm not sure. And I was just sitting there, and I'd be knocking them down, like firing at sort of, I don't know, troops that are attacking you across no man's land. But and I'd be doing that 6 to 8 hours a day. But those inner worlds, they are so disgusting and so horrible that I must say I would never want to do anything to deserve, having to actually go there and stay there.
Oh yeah,
they're beyond
so you
terrifying.
Say 6 to 8 hours a day, but why didn't you leave? I mean, why would?
Well, I felt it was my duty after I saw the blue light leaving my hands. That I felt it was my duty to go down there and destroy as many of them as possible, and that's what I did for 3.5 years.
Wow, sort of like a spiritual warrior, like literally.
Yeah, there was a number of us because I trained a couple, three, four, five other people to do it as well. So we would all go, sometimes we'd all go into trance together, you know, or we'd be in different parts of the world in trance at different times of the day. But it isn't really that hard to see. It's not like it's hidden from us. It's there. And we would just go in there and create as much havoc as we could with as many of them as we could, you know. And we don't know how many we killed because a lot of these ghouls, these devil beings, are inside other beings. So it's like those little Chinese dolls, you know, and every time you go in, there's another one underneath that's smaller. So a lot of the ghoul beings are like 3 and 4. You hit them and 3 jump out. But one thing I'll tell people is that if you see a very beautiful feminine eye in meditation or on ayahuasca, be very, very careful because the ghouls hide inside those feminine eyes. It's a bit as like saying that it's a spaceship. And when you hit the feminine eye, 3 ghouls jump out, but they hide in the feminine eye because it's disarming and people look at the feminine eye and it's like this program that says, wow, it's my mother, you know, here's my mother looking at me. But in fact, it's a trick of the ghouls to move around in the female eye as a sort of morph image around themselves, you know?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, David Icke talks a lot about different vibrations and different dimensions. So I suppose in this case, DMT simply allows you to sense a different vibratory reality that coexists with
Definitely. There's no question of it.
the apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember bugging David to go to ayahuasca, and eventually he did go. And then he came back, and his teachings were different after that because he was, well, he was sort of saying things like love is the answer, and he talked about this vibrational rate and stuff. So he definitely, you know, found a use in his travels. He went, I think he went to Peru, and, you know, he definitely got a benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've talked to many people. You know, I used to live in Ecuador, and I've spoken with many people who came to Ecuador to go on an ayahuasca journey.
Yes.
You know, I've so spoken to many people. I just never did it myself.
Oh.
But
well, you should come. You should come with us. You know, we do them at a resort that used to be the President's Summer Palace, and it's just near Tabacundo, which you probably know if you lived in Ecuador. It's about an hour.
That name doesn't ring a bell.
It's about an hour out of Quito, northeast of Quito.
Oh, okay, all right.
No, I mean, yeah, northeast of Quito, yeah. And it's a beautiful resort. It's an extraordinary place, like a Garden of Eden with sort of llamas on the lawns and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's been a wonderful thing going to Ecuador over the years.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. I'm just not sure that I want to go into purgatory, hell, and
No. But you have to understand that's not a normal ayahuasca journey. It was just my karma that took me, you know, there. Do you follow me? It was just my karma to go there and fight in those worlds. It's not what it's not what normally happens in ayahuasca. Normally people see the heaven worlds and they get perceptions of their families and their body and their health and that sort of stuff. It's not devilish necessarily. And then, of course, you have to see both sides of everything to become a complete, you know, to complete the knowledge that you seek.
True, yeah. But what would you say to the skeptics who say, well, you know, this is all just imagined? And those are the same people, by the way, who say there is no consciousness, there is no free will, there is no afterlife. You're just like a skin bag, a biological robot, and when you die, and that's it.
Well, I think I would say to them, listen, bro, let's go down to the pub and have a few drinks and let's not talk about this stuff. Because if they honestly believe there is no consciousness, well, fine, let them believe whatever they want to believe. And let them say what they want to say and let's just go have a drink and forget about it. Because there's no question that the whole of the world is consciousness. I mean, a tree is a mathematical fractal code. It's a mathematical equation that describes how wide the branches are and where they go and the leaves. I mean, there isn't anything in the world that isn't a mathematics. We're inside a mathematical simulation or inside a mathematical formula. So, you know, I suppose, how do you convince somebody if they don't believe it? And the answer is don't bother, you know?
Yeah, that's actually a very good answer because they'll find out soon enough.
They'll find out soon
You
enough,
know,
and it really doesn't matter what they believe. You see, I'm a great believer in live and let live, and also I think it's terribly important for people to believe whatever they want to believe, even if what they believe is ludicrous, because what they believe is part of their karma, and it will create their life, and maybe there's things they have to experience down the road that you just don't want to change necessarily. So they'll come when they want to, and they won't if they don't want to, and that's simple, really.
yeah, I tend to agree with that. Live and let live. I have sort of a libertarian philosophy along those lines.
Yes.
Uh, but of course, so much of the world that exists today is all based on controlling you. It's not live and let live. It's the government want to control what you think, what you eat, even how you experience consciousness.
I say in my book that control is demonic because it's like demonic
Yeah.
possession, and that administration is different because the example I give is if you own or if you run a railway company, administration is setting a timetable, hiring drivers, getting the railway.
Right.
That's different because the drivers can come to work or not as they wish. But, forcing control over people is a demonic trait. It's part of how the hell worlds want to dominate us. So we should try to stay away from control and allow everybody to be what they want to be.
Yeah, exactly. And there are just so many systems of control that are resisting that. But think about where our world could be if we really if everyone had an allowing philosophy and it was more about how do we support others rather than dominating them. I'm sure you're well aware that most of the wars and terrorism and everything is all fabricated. It's all staged and engineered to create control. If those systems of control were gone or transformed, let's say, we would have a world of incredible abundance and peace and happiness.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and we could have that.
We could have that. That's the brave new world that I write about in my articles sometimes. But for people to let go, I mean, control has a lot to do with importance. And people like to feel important. So the more important a person becomes, the more they're special, and they create observers. It's a particle physics thing that, a particle isn't solid until you observe it. And so people move towards control and fame and all of that because it's a death avoidance mechanism, because it allows them to feel more special, more important, more solid.
True, yeah.
I'm the ruler here, or I'm the manager of the Western region, and I'm going to boss everybody about. So specialness is the opposite to godliness.
And it's interesting that in government we find, and even in medicine, we find that this phenomena that you just talked about, people adorn themselves with symbols of authority. In the military, it's badges. In the government, it's uniforms. In medicine, it's a lab coat. They adorn themselves with these symbols, and we even just posted a video about silly marches, and you've got John Cleese with his famous Department of Silly Walks.
Yes.
In the UK. And there's all this nonsense sort of self-congratulatory behavior in these systems of control to take on the appearance of importance, where behind the scenes, philosophically, they actually lack authority. They're empty, so they have to fake it.
A lot of our leaders are sort of emotional, spiritual cripples, and then they wouldn't they wouldn't try to become leaders unless there was something terribly wrong with them. Because a spiritual person isn't going to want to lead anything. They're going to want to be with themselves and their friends and evolve and understand themselves, and they're not up for conquering the world or leading anything in particular, And I always say to my people that read my books, be nothing, agree to be nothing, and then you're safe, then you're free. It doesn't mean that you don't have a sense of self-worth or like eternity inside of you. You do. But in the social, political, whatnot world, agree to be nothing. Agree to be last. And then I tell people, agree to lose. If you're playing a game of chess, make a silly move really early on. Agree to lose.
Hmm. What are the names of your books, by the way?
Well, I wrote quite a well-known book called The Infinite Self, and I wrote one about money called The Trick to Money's Having Some. And I think if people go to Amazon and look for Stuart Wilde, Stuart, Wilde, they'll see them there. There's 20 books out there at the moment, and I haven't written any more books recently because, I don't know, the whole book thing sort of died a bit, and it's not really what it used to be in the olden days. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're all books about personal liberty and consciousness and how to break free of this control matrix that's all around us that's getting worse and worse.
Yeah. Well, how do you think? Where can we find traction as a civilization, overcoming the controllers and the deceivers, and actually moving into truly a new golden age of awareness and consciousness and spiritual vitality?
Well, I think sites like your site and sites like my site and so forth are teaching people different things. But I think the main traction is when you link in with people of like mind. And whether that's an ayahuasca group or a church or a meditation group or whatever it might be, people studying permaculture or whatever, I think you have to sort of reach out and find other people that are on the same wavelength. Otherwise, you can be conned into thinking that the whole world is this sort of fascist nightmare, that's all around you, which it is, but it's good to know that there's other souls out there that are in the same, they're with you, and they're with us and we're joined.
Yeah.
We're a massive group around the world, albeit diffused, but we're massive. I mean, we're hundreds of millions of people that are on this consciousness parabola away from fascism and government control and all that nonsense.
Well, that's a really powerful truth, because in truth, the controllers are a very small percentage of the total number of people. It's just that the other, let's say 99%, agree to be controlled. They tolerate the fascism.
I think they're pretending.
99% of the people just want to be free.
Yeah, I think they're pretending for the most part. They're just too scared to give the police the middle finger, but deep in their soul, the middle finger comes up instantly, doesn't it, So, they're just, self-preservation keeps them from being too overt. But I don't think that a lot of people in the world want to be controlled by some fascist pigs marching down the street. That's not the case,
No, and there's a small percent who want to join them for the power, right?
Yeah.
But most people just want to be left alone, which is really where I come from too. I want to be left alone to grow some plants here, to live on my farm, and to live in it with a sense of safety from the physical society, so that I can explore spiritual reality. But here's an important thought along those lines: is we have to have enough freedom to be able to protect the vessel, the body, that the spirit occupies during this lifetime, in order to have spiritual growth. So we have to have some basics of liberty and safety and freedom in order to just have the opportunity for spiritual development here.
Yes, I think you're right. And whether or not that will be the case, forever and ever, I don't know, because it looks to me like it's getting worse and worse at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree.
The threat.
But one theory on that is that there is a wave of awareness, and we are part of it, and we are experiencing it, and that the systems of control are becoming so desperate that they're accelerating their timeline to try to seize any remaining control, because they see this wave of awareness approaching. What do you think about that, Stuart?
Well, I've seen this light coming. Trevor Ravenscroft, who wrote The Spear of Destiny, which was sort of a classic about the occult nature of the Nazis and stuff, he called it the solar logos. And he said that the returned Jesus was inside the solar logos. And I don't think he meant that Jesus would be any one particular person, more the Christ consciousness, the golden light of Gaia, the golden light of the gods. And I've seen that light. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it, and I've seen how it washes over humanity. It's going to take out the controllers. It's going to take out the fascists. It's going to resolve everything in the end. But I think there's going to be a tug of war between the fascist controllers and the spiritual people sort of creeping off and hiding, because I don't think there's any point in us trying to confront because, hey, they can bang on your door tomorrow, can't they, if you really, really want to confront. And we started the top of the hour talking about the control that's exercised by these various social networks and internet companies. That's the beginning of what's going to happen all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, we have to just leave. We have to leave or find a rural community or something like that, because I don't know, like I always tell my readers and the people that read my site, stuartwilde.com, that like one day I'm not going to be here. Not because I'm dead, but because it won't be allowed. The sort of stuff I write about just won't be allowed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems like, it's dark times may lay ahead for us, but also on the other side of that, an incredible awakening. Humanity's got to find a way to go to the next quantum leap. We're stuck right now. We're stuck in, just exploiting the planet, polluting the planet, poisoning ourselves and each other, and calling it profit. Making children sick, and then making money off of treating their sickness. And then people have retirement funds that are invested in the drug companies, so they think they're getting ahead while their child is dying from preventable cancer. This spiral of self-destruction, it's an illness, and it's a cancer on humanity. Yes. And it's got to end.
Yes, it's tragic. I mean, it has to end. And then my old teacher said that when the fascists came, would come, and he sort of predicted it 40 years ago, he said there will be more and more and more light. And he talked about the Tao, the ebb and flow of nature, the eternal Tao. And he said the Tao would come, the beings would come, Gaia would come, awareness would come, to compensate for the fact there was more dark. And I think anybody that's in this sort of spiritual thing like yourself, Mike, knows that the light is bigger now. People's awareness is massive compared to the way it used to be. And so in many ways, the dark's done us a favor, because the more these sort of snivelers attack, the better we all do. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I do see that. And I recognize that eternal, in Chinese medicine, yin and yang. Power that is always there. And the worse the darkness gets, the more, the stronger the light will become to compensate. Yeah. It's true.
And of course, the spiritual people and the sort of light bearers and that sort of stuff, they're not there. They're not in the news. They're not on TV. They're not, they're more silent and humble. But they do create a change. I mean, I think that when you walk down the street, your light will fry 100,000 ghouls. It can change the evolution of people, that if you stop and talk to them, or even if, let's say, you touch them because you shook hands with them and stuff, their light's going out in ways that we do not completely understand, or that we only partially understand. And it is making a difference. It's definitely, the world is evolving, but it's evolving sort of quietly and underneath, while all the news is on top. I mean, all the clutter in the news and the programming and the regulations and the executive orders and all that nonsense that's in the news. But the spiritual stuff's like this golden river that's flowing, and it's going to essentially, in the end, transform the world.
I agree, and it's like the controllers are fighting the previous war. They're fighting for control of the press or control of the dollars. They're fighting in a realm that has already been transcended, I think, in the minds of many. They're going to lose the spiritual war because they're still fighting a physical war or an economic war. At least that's my assessment.
Yeah, definitely, because I don't think in the spiritual war they have the knowledge or the jargon or the comprehension. And so they can't really appeal to people spiritually. And then they can terrorize them with, money and taxes and, all the different stuff, But, I mean, in the end, truth is truth, and people know. People know, they know about the bankers and the Illuminati, and they know about Israel, and they know about the wars and the chemicals and the pollution and the fluoride in the water. Like, I mean, it's amazing to me how much people know. They know a lot. It's mostly because of the internet. Yeah. And sites like yourself and so forth, naturalnews.com. I mean, there you are. Every day there's 100 different things people can read about the GMO debate and so forth, So I think humans are very well informed compared to the way they used to be.
Well, that's a good point, and that's very young too. The internet really only took off in the early 1990s.
Yeah.
And most people weren't online until the late 1990s. I mean, we're only talking about roughly 15 years of people being privy to alternative information.
Yeah.
That's a very short time, considering that information was completely monopolized before.
Exactly.
That.
I mean, on my site, we translate a certain selection of my articles into Russian. Well, imagine during the communist era, how would I have got through to any Russians? Do you follow me? But today,
yeah, right.
I don't know how many Russians click my site every day, but some do. And it's like, there we are. It's almost like a beachhead has been established in Russia now. And it's just all over the world in all the different languages and all the different, well, it's such a massive information, isn't it, about health and living and consciousness and awareness and meditation and DMT and ayahuasca and spiritual groups. And I mean, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere.
Yes, and this is why the internet is being routinely attacked,
yes.
Blamed for things. The newspapers are losing circulation in a huge way.
Yeah.
Print magazines have shut down.
Yeah.
I think Newsweek was one of them.
Yes.
Used to be a print magazine. Now it's no longer. Time magazine is probably headed in the same direction. The New York Times, it used to be the newspaper of record. Now Gerald Celente calls it the toilet paper of record.
Yes.
Things are changing, and hence the need for Facebook to censor people who will cite history, because they just can't stand for free information to flow across Facebook without intervention.
Well, it's just the forces of control and the forces of specialness, but in the end, we win, even though it doesn't look like we're winning. It looks like we're getting beaten up on, but no, I mean, truth wins and the light wins, and all these sort of fascist controllers, I mean, they fall because the light swamps over the top of them.
Well, that's it. They destroy themselves.
Yeah.
And, spiritually, that they do. And all we really have to do, I mean, at a spiritual level, I guess, is, stay in our vibration of knowledge and awareness and ultimately love. And those destroyers will destroy themselves.
Exactly.
Although that's probably hard to follow in a practical sense. I can't stay silent, about these things. But spiritually, it's like we really don't have to do that much except focus on love.
Focus on love and focus on perpetually. My old teacher called it skimming the lake. And that's the process of perpetually looking at yourself and seeing how well you did and whether you could have done better and what dark and devious thoughts are coming up inside of you and stuff like that. And so if we attempt to stay clean, sometimes we fast for a few days, and it's just the attempt to stay in the energy and in the light all of the time.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that, and I think also it's that self-awareness or that self-coaching of your own decisions and your own behavior. So, there are some in organized religion who think that you can go out and destroy all week and be a sinner all week, but as long as you repent on Sunday, you're spiritually cleared.
Yeah.
And I don't follow that. I think that you are accountable for everything that you consciously do, and so we must proceed with compassion and care and a sense of responsibility about our own lives, but also how we impact everything else around us. And I think that's, at the end of the life, I think we are judged on the whole of what we have done.
Definitely, that's definitely the case. I mean, in the ayahuasca worlds that we talked about earlier, everything is a feeling. So it doesn't matter what a klutz you are, as long as you have a sweet feeling. If you have a sort of an innocuous feeling or a feeling of goodness and warmth towards humanity and the animals, or you could be the most brilliant scientist, but if you're evil in your thinking or controlling, then you will see the hell worlds. But essentially, the celestial worlds respond to warmth and tenderness, respect, just those particular qualities that are not particularly hard to generate inside oneself. You have to be disciplined about, remembering to be respectful, remembering to be tender and warm and kind to people and so forth.
Yeah. And to animals. I would say, and the earth, the ecosystems.
Yeah. I mean, I don't campaign for vegetarianism, but I don't know any people that aren't vegetarians. And all the people that have sort of made massive strides in their awareness, all the ones that I know are vegetarians, because I think it's hard if you eat meat. But also nowadays, meat is so polluted. I mean, it's green, there's, what is it, pig slime, and in England they put horse meat in the burgers, and, in China they eat dogs, and I mean, it's all like, hello, I think eating meat is really dangerous. I ran a story on my site a couple of weeks ago about how the FDA knows there's arsenic in chicken. So you go for your chicken McNuggets and have a nice little sort of morsel of arsenic. Well, you probably don't get enough arsenic in your chicken McNuggets to die, but even so, you don't really want to be eating arsenic. And so I think when people realize that, hey, chicken's got arsenic in it, beef's got hormones in it, and so forth and so on, they're just going to move away from meat and eat less of it or none of it.
Well, that's absolutely true, and I've written a lot in this realm. I'm not a vegetarian myself, although I have been a vegan too in the past, but I only eat meat very sparingly, and only when I know the farmer and I know the environment and I know the experience of the animal, and even then it's very limited. But for me, it's more like I don't want to eat factory farmed beef because of the experience of the cow living in a factory farm. I mean, that's hell. That's torture.
Yeah.
Day after day, for as long as they're kept alive, barely. And where I live in Texas, there are cows nearby that I see that are free range.
Yeah.
And this is the best time of their lives. After they free range here, they get sold off to the feedlots, and then they go into hell.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a sad and sorry tale, but humans have to become more aware and more conscious. I think here, Mike, we'll close it out here because we're coming up to about an hour. And so that'll
Time got away from us.
Yeah, that'll make a nice little segment. So look, let me just ask you, we're coming up to the top of the hour here, Mike. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close out?
I just want to thank you for the invitation to have this discussion, and at a soul level, it's affirming to know that people like you exist and that we can have these kinds of discussions, and that I'm not alone in thinking that there's more than just the physical world. and I've never used DMT, but I was able to come to these conclusions through another way, through another pathway.
Yes.
It's a universal truth.
It's a universal truth. And if any time you want to come to the ayahuasca, just let us know and we'll comp you. You might have to pay the hotel fee, but you won't have to pay for the ceremony or to go to the gig. But the hotel fee is like nothing. It's like maybe $50 a night or something, And we would be more than happy to comp you to come to Ecuador or to come to Holland or whatever you're like over this way. Obviously, in America, we can't offer you the ayahuasca experience because it's illegal there.
Well, I'd much rather visit Holland. I've never been to Holland, but I've met many people from there who are just wonderful, brilliant, creative people, and just nice folks too. really polite society, actually.
It's a lovely place, Holland. It's fantastic. So you'll enjoy it there if you go there for 4 or 5 days or whatever. You'll love it.
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the invitation, and again, I enjoyed talking with you, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you very much for talking with me. It's been good fun, and I'll just remind people, naturalnews.com. Mike Adam, and there you go. A wonderful site full of good information. I go on almost every single day to that site and look through the articles and see what's happening, and I recommend it highly to my listeners. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Stuart. All right, thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, bye-bye now.